Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGeek webinar series, our endeavor to impart techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is deployment automation. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Ganesh Sahai, founder of Westtrain. Mr. Ganesh is a BTech from IIT Delhi and EGMP from IIM Lucknow. He has been founder, co-founder and founder team member of few startup companies and initiatives in the field of IT, marketing and academics. He worked for Adobe since 1999 for around 12 years. He has led and set up many of the key testing teams from scratch for various Adobe products like Acrobat, Adobe Reader, AIR, CS, tools, etc., spanning desktops, handhelds, hosted and enterprise area. He worked as the head of quality engineering with Aristocrat Technologies. He has got 16 ideas approved for patents. He is the founder of Test to be Best and Doltuation community of those interested in software testing and innovation respectively. He is currently setting up Westtrain. So without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Mr. Ganesh.
Thank you so much, Moini, for the kind introduction. Welcome all to this session on deployment automation. All right. So the objective of this introductory webinar are to understand deployment versus provisioning, build automation versus release automation, application lifecycle management, manual versus automated deployment and provisioning, creating your own tool or framework versus off-the-shelf tools that are available in the market, and most popular of these tools are Puppet and Chef. And so we will take a deeper look at Puppet towards the second half of this webinar. So, in the Puppet section, we'll look at what is Puppet and how does it work, and standalone versus agent master flavor of Puppet, and installing and running Puppet, creating and running manifests, and Puppet language and Puppet certification. So let's get started with trying to understand the difference between deployment and provisioning. Now, the first question is, are they same or are they different, and what are they? So, and the other question that comes in mind is that, is it same as installation? Now, sometimes provisioning is considered part of deployment and not as separate, and hence together they are referred to as deployment. So, it may have never occurred as a separate activity. Now, let's try to look at that where have these terms come from, and so all these things and beyond I will cover in this webinar. So in military, if you see, these terms were used quite frequently, and they are used even today. The term deployment over there implies the process of moving the troops to a given location and take positions for action. So that is, more generically you can say moving from location A to location B and take the designated position. Whereas provisioning means the process of providing the deployed troops with all the resources to enable them to function to perform action, which includes things like supply of food, ammunition, communication, etc. Now, taking the parallel from the military domain to the software domain, the term deployment in terms of software would imply installing software, that is putting the files in place, let's say, or more broadly we can say installing, updating, uninstalling, reinstalling. Whereas provisioning would imply providing permissions to run these installed softwares, that is giving them the licenses, whether they are perpetual or subscription licenses. And more broadly, we can say it will include things like serialization, activation, configuring, that is preferences and settings, etc., ULA, license, update checks, all these things will come into provisioning. Now, however, in practice, we see both deployment and provisioning happening together. The installers may be doing the deployment as well as the provisioning. That is, you are putting the files in the required locations and as well as taking the serial number for activation. So you might have done this thing while installing the various software. So for example, let's say you're trying to set up a Tomcat server, right? So you will unzip the thing and then you will go to the corresponding XML files to update, let's say, the port number that has to be in the listening mode for Tomcat. Or let's say if you are installing some of the other popular desktop products like, say, Adobe Photoshop, so you will run the installer, give it the serial number keys, and so on, like Microsoft Office or any other software product that you might be installing. And of course, though the later customization can also be done. So going forward in this session, we will refer to deployment, implying both deployment and provisioning. So let's see some complete examples and a demo of some of these. So let me demo you a simple MSI installer first. Okay. So here's a sample MSI installer that I've created. So if I click on this sample.msi, this dialog comes up, and then it asks me where to install this, right? I'm sure this must be a familiar thing to all of you, right? And then this whatever in the background it is doing, trying to put together the files or searching for the required permissions, all those activities are happening in the background. Now you can take any typical MSI installer which would be there for any desktop products, and in this installer I have very few steps. That is, just ask for the location where it has to be installed. But you might have seen more complex installation processes whereby it will ask, there might be 10 screens that might come up asking for different kind of instructions, right? So okay, so it is complete and it's finished, right? So I click finish, and if I go to control panel over here, right, let me refresh this, and I can say, so here it is, sample, it is installed over here, and I can go to program files and go to Withstrain folder, and here we have the sample, and it is installed just 2 files over here, right? So this is how the MSI installer has been used using the manual process, right? And similarly, you can have, if you go to the download site of some of the popular ones, so you can have for example, the Adobe Reader installer might be there, right? Or let's say if you have the Tomcat, Apache Tomcat, then it will be in zip form. So you will unzip it, and it will basically give you this whole dump, right? And then you may go and change the configuration settings which might be there. So config, for example, let's say the XML server.xml is there, and you want to upgrade the port that you're supposed to listen to me, whether 8080, 81, 8081, or any other port which you want it to be configured for, right? So these are some of the typical things that you might be doing while doing the whole deployment process. Okay, so let's move forward. Now, the other thing that comes up is provisioning versus deployment. Sorry, provisioning versus configuring. So that's another confusion that sometimes people have. So let's spend a few minutes on that. So for many software pieces that we deploy, there are these configuration files that need to be updated for proper required functioning. For example, for Tomcat we saw updating the server.xml. Now this is typically referred to as configuring. So then how is it different than provisioning? So for that, let's say, what do we do if we have to do it for multiple systems and along with it set up other parameters? Like in case of Tomcat, additionally we have to take care of Java OPTS environment variable settings, that is setting up the Java heap memory size and the perm memory size. So doing all this to set up the software up and running comes under provisioning. So in nutshell, we can say working on individual pieces would be referred to as configuring, while taking care of it on a larger level from end to end would be referred to as provisioning. And then you will come across many other provisioning terms like network provisioning, that is setting up the network for required performance or required access. Server provisioning, for example, we have just seen setting up a few bits of setting up Tomcat server, right? Or it could be JBoss server, right? Or any other server that you want to set up. Then user provisioning in terms of what kind of access role you want to give to the user, what all services they will have access to. So those kind of things will come under user provisioning. Then you may be coming across a term called mobile subscriber provisioning, and this involves what kind of services would be available to a mobile subscriber, and so on. There might be many more terms that you can come across. A comprehensive list of this and a detailed description about some of these is available at the Wikipedia site that I have listed below. Now let's come back to the big picture, that is of deployment, provisioning, and configuring, installing that we've been talking about. And let's club it all together as one, and then focus on the deployment automation. Okay. But before we do that, there are a couple of other terms that you might have come across, which is build and release automation. So another question would be, will it be part of the deployment automation? So let's see. Now, the many integrated development environments, IDEs, have the build option to build your projects. So what does it do? So it picks up the sources, compiles them, and generates the required executable components. So if I were to show you one quick example, so let's say here's a simple Java Hello World program, right? And here is, you will see the option of build the project. In Eclipse, you have this option of building automatically. So it will basically, the moment you make some change, right, you save it and it will, compile the whole code, and then you can go and run it from here. But this is a simple project which has just one file. When you are building real life projects for real life problems that you are trying to solve, or the solutions that you are going to deliver. So there would be many of these files and huge code base that need to be compiled again and again as the new changes are being built into it. So this is basically the process of building. And the next thing is that we need something to put these components together, and things like README, etc., to create an installer. So one is building it and then packaging them together as in creating a installer. So for example, in case of Tomcat, I just showed you that zipped version, right? So the team which is developing Tomcat is making changes in the Tomcat and building it, and then basically generating that zip on a regular basis, which the first their test teams will be using it, and then finally on the given milestones, those zip versions will be rolled out. Now, so automating the above, that is the build process, and churning out these installers is referred to as the build automation. So the first part, that is automating the build process, is referred to as the build automation, and we basically need to write scripts to achieve all this. And the release automation would be that when the automation when the build automation is put in place, regular builds will start to come. So we need a mechanism to schedule it, send email to the required folks that the build is ready now, trigger on check-ins. That is, whenever the check-in happens into the code base, the build should trigger. That is, the whole build process should start, and let the person who has checked in know that whether it has passed or failed the build process. Show a listing of the successful versus failed builds. Show progress of the builds, show logs of the failed builds, all these things. Now this is what gets covered in the release management, and for this we can use tools like Jenkins, Cruise Control, etc. So, and the other thing, other term that you would come across is application lifecycle management, right? So the whole flow of or the lifespan of the product from the initial idea to the end of the application's life is what is referred to as the application lifecycle management, and it is different from SDLC, software development lifecycle. SDLC is a subset of or it's basically part of the overall ALM for the product. Now, three areas of the ALM are governance, development, and operations and maintenance. That is, governance includes decision making, project management, etc. And development would include converting the requirements into code to create a shipping product. And deployment is a critical part where the product is put into production for operation purposes. Though before shipping, it will be done in the testing environments, in the staging environments, and once certified, then only it will move to the production environments. And the third area is the area of operations and maintenance. Now this goes on till the application is removed, that is, it reaches its end of life, and till it is basically serving its purpose and it is alive and kicking. So monitoring is the key part for it, and there will be successful cycles of deploy and monitor, deploy and monitor. So if the product is going incremental changes, so the new build will come, get deployed, and it will be monitored, and so on. The cycle will continue till it reaches the end of life. So now coming back to the deployment big picture, that is deployment, provisioning, configuring, installing, and we said we'll club it all together under one head of basically talking about deployment automation. So what kind of scenarios would be there to do this? That is, you may have a single installation, you may have multiple installations. So for example, in multiple installation, we have either it could be on the physical setups or on the cloud. So on the physical setup, it could be, for example, the company-wide PCs are there. So let's say if there are 1,000 employees in the organization, and all those setups are to be updated, right? So that kind of a scenario we are talking about here. Single installation, we just see on a single desktop you are updating your software or installing the software, and now so this could be both for basically actual production scenarios, as in the commercial portals that might be there where business transaction is happening, or internal physical desktop setups are there, or individual people either not frequent installations, but they may be doing frequent installation. For example, the test teams, whereby basically every day they are cleaning up the systems and setting up the new builds. So even the single installation, the frequency may be quite high. And then we have to take care of, especially on the commercial e-commerce portals, things like auto scaling. So if we pick up some of the core real-life scenarios, so I would like to focus on e-commerce portals and the desktop application side. So on the e-commerce portal, let's say we have book portals like Amazon or Flipkart, or it could be a social media folder portal like Facebook or Pinterest. And then desktop application areas could be like Adobe Reader, Adobe Photoshop, Firefox, Microsoft Office, McAfee, etc. Right. So these we will keep on referring to some of these key real life scenarios in our further discussion. Okay, so now coming to the question of how do we do it. So one is that we just saw that how to do it manually. For example, in case of the sample MSI installer. So we put together all the pieces manually as we just did in the demo, and now the key thing to see is what is the challenge in doing it manually. Now the challenge is, for the demo purposes, I had a very simple sample MSI installer, and it was fairly straight. But there are more complex installers, and then the configuration itself would need to take care of a lot of settings that need to be set. And if basically, let's say you're setting up a stack of let's say JBoss servers and MySQL databases, right? And then you're basically setting up a top on multiple instances and then configuring it with a load balancer for the load to be distributed evenly on all these instances. Now, and especially if basically you need to set up more, let's say to take care of auto scaling, if you're doing it manually, all this stuff, right? Then the chances of missing a step are, number one is that there is always a chance of missing a step. Now if you miss one step, then debugging it, that is reaching to where the step might have been missed. It may be easy to find, or it may be sometimes very difficult to find, right? So it depends upon the logs that are getting generated, and sometimes it might be very easy to figure it out that what you have missed, but sometimes you are just not able to catch up in the logs because the way the logs are being generated, sometimes the information will not take you directly to where the problem might lie. So that's one thing. Other is the time it takes to set up these instances. And third, of course, is over a time it gets really boring for the people who do this job. So, and fourth, of course, is the scalability issue, that since it is taking a lot of time and there are chances to of missing the steps, right? So and the thing that it gets boring makes chances of missing the step even more higher, right? So scalability becomes a real concern then. So how do we overcome all these challenges? The answer to that is to automate it. So that brings us to the question that what will deployment automation do? Okay, so now, what deployment automation will do is that it will capture all the manual steps in the script. So whatever you have been doing manually, it will try to capture all these steps in a script, and then do the deployment on the execution of the script. Now imagine that whatever you were doing, we were doing manually in case of the sample MSI installer, if that all thing can be captured in script, and then you can run that script, which will take care of the automated deployment. So how do we do this? So now there are two ways to do this. One is that you write simple shell or batch script and then write a complete framework whereby basically you can invoke these scripts as per your requirement. Or second is that you can pick up some of the off-the-shelf tools that are available in the market. Both open source, free, and paid options are available for these tools. And two of the tools which are very popular in this category are Puppet and Chef. So let us see if the MSI installer were to be automated, how will that be done? So either you can do it manually as we have seen, or we can create a simple batch file and then do it. Now, and the third is, of course, we can do it through the Puppet. So let's see first for the MSI installer, right? So I showed you that we have this MSI, the sample installer installed over the sample MSI installer installed this application over here. So let me uninstall this application. So if I uninstall this application, and okay, okay, so it's gone now, right? Let's check the folders if it is still there. So it's gone. Okay, so it's uninstalled now. You know, here I have a simple, you know, batch file, which basically, you know, invokes a command msi exe, right, and then it picks up the MSI installer from this given location, right, and then, you know, installs it, right, in the silent mode, right. So if I were to run this application, okay, so let me okay, so if I go to slash just 1 second. Okay, so here is my batch file install.bat. Okay, so if I just run this, okay, so it will basically in the silent mode, you know, in the background, go and install the uh, the uh, uh, the sample application or run the sample installer. Okay, so here it is, right? So it has come up over here, right? Now, similarly, if I were to do it on a Linux environment, let's say, right? So in the Linux environment, let's say I have to, you know, set up the JDK and then the MySQL and that kind of stuff I have to do. So typically, what I would like to do is that I would like to pass on the information. Okay, you know, like it's a JDK job, right? What you have to do is pick up the JDK installer, that is, you know, JDK blah 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 tar.gz, and you know the location where it is this is temp lock and the var temp folder, and then, you know, go and install in the var temp installer, right? You know, create the folder by the name of JDK 1.7.0 underscore 21, like that. And I would like I would write a corresponding shell script which will basically, you know, parse through this file, right? And for each file, right, it will you know, read each token, right, and then create the corresponding folder, and then, you know, for example, set up the Java home variable in the bash profile, and, you know, like keep on doing all that stuff, set up the paths, etc., etc., etc. So I can have it for, you know, depending upon whatever I encounter. So if I encounter JDK, it will do this. If I encounter MySQL, you know, in the deploy properties file, right, it will do the MySQL stuff and so on. So whatever I want to install, I would basically, you know, specify in this deploy prop file, and then, you know, call the corresponding install.let's shell script, which will basically pass through this file, read the various options, and do the required stuff. Right. So this is typically what I would, you know, do on a Linux environment. Right. Now, let us see if I were to do this stuff using Puppet. Okay. So what I will do is, let me go back over here and uninstall this. Right. So I can okay. So there we go. So it's uninstalled. Let me check the program files folder. Let's refresh it. Right. So it's gone. Okay. So so if I were to do it using Puppet, so what I will do is that I would you know, go to the Puppet script. over here I have it. So let's say um, okay, let me see which I can pick up. Okay, not this one. Okay. So let me use this, right? As a question for this. Now I would have to you know, launch the Puppet command prompt, and I'll explain this to you just in a while. So I'll go to this location. So let me see. Okay, I have it over here, right? And the one that I wanted to run was getting back to this. Yeah, so this is the one, my underscore install. Okay, so let's get back to this. So I would say Puppet apply, okay, my underscore install.cp. Okay, so it's basically, you know, so this my underscore install pp has captured those installation steps, and it's in the background now trying to install it. So it has done the job, right? So let's go and see in the control panel. Simple. Okay, so here it is, and this time I changed the install location to my okay, so let's go and see. Yeah, so my underscore install, inside this I've installed it, right? So yeah, so if you basically go in the script, so I've given the install location as c my underscore install. So this is a simple script which does this job. How it works, we'll come back in a short while. Okay, so this is how, you know, we saw how we can do it manually, how we can do it through a batch file, and then how we can do it through a Puppet. We also saw that how we can write shell script and do it on the Linux environment, and then similarly, you know, the this kind of a Puppet script which is there, you can write a similar kind of Puppet script for installation on the Linux environment. Okay, so let us try to see some more examples of the thing we may want to do. So let us say whenever we are doing this deployment, we want to create a directory or change permissions of a directory, do an uninstallation before doing a fresh installation, or start a service, or stop a service, or restart a service, and so on. You know, so many things that you may want to do. So let us take a simple case. If let's say you know, I want to create a directory, right? So or create a file. So what I'll do is, so here's a script for you. So what I'll do is, it will basically say that in this location, you know, create a temp.txt, right? So let's try to run this. Okay. Okay. So if I say apply create underscore file, right, and let's see what happens. Okay, so let's see the directory listing. So here you see that let's go. Okay, not in this location because our location is C work temp sample installer, and this is temp tools sample. So if you go to temp sample installer, right, here's what it has created. So 0407 1735. So this is, you know, freshly created txt file. Okay, so we can create file, and similarly, you know, you can have other things like if you want to create a directory, right? So you can create a directory. So for example, you know, so we can just give a command, the batch command, by this format, and then say mkdir to make the directory, and the directory could be c:/test. So all these kind of things you can do using Puppet scripts. So let's move on now. So let's basically try to understand what is Puppet. And if you go to their site over here, you can see their site over here. So Puppet is a tool created by a organization called Puppet Labs, right? And this is their landing page, which basically gives you all the information about what is Puppet and how to download it and how does it work. So a whole lot of information is available for Puppet over here, right? And if you look at broadly what Puppet is, so Puppet is an IT automation software that helps system administrators manage infrastructure throughout its lifecycle, from provisioning and configuration to patch management and compliance. Using Puppet, you can easily automate repetitive tasks, quickly deploy critical applications, and proactively manage change scaling from tens of servers to thousands on-premise or on the cloud. So that's what Puppet tool is. And there's a whole lot of documentation available at docs.puppetlabs.com. And one of the other things about Puppet, it says, is that Puppet manages your service in a nutshell. So you describe machine configuration in easy to read declarative language, as we just saw in some of the scripts that we were running. And Puppet will bring your system into the desired state and keep them there. So how you can install Puppet is that you can go to their download location over here, which is puppetlabs.com, Puppet Enterprise versus yeah. So the other thing is that there are two flavors to it. One is the enterprise, another is the open source. So let me just quickly go over this. This will give you an idea about especially if you are seriously considering using Puppet tool. Pricing becomes one of the critical elements of decision making. So here is a quick comparison of Puppet open source, which is free, versus Puppet Enterprise, which has some of the more features like graphical user interface would be there in Puppet Enterprise, which is not there in Puppet open source, and provisioning for Amazon EC2, that is AWS EC2 is available for both open source and enterprise, whereas for VMware it is only available in Puppet Enterprise. And some of the other things which are there, you can see things like support are available in Puppet Enterprise, so on. And you can use Puppet Enterprise and configure and manage 10 nodes for free. So you can still get Puppet Enterprise for free if you have to just manage 10 nodes. Right? Okay, so let's get on track with our slideshow. Okay, so all you have to do is, the link that I showed to you over here is, you can get started with Puppet Enterprise, since download it from here and install it. Now, once you install it in your program files, you will see an entry of here you see Puppet Enterprise, and you will have all these things over here. And make sure you launch start command prompt as an administrator. So once you launch it, this prompt comes, and then you can start to run your Puppet files as we just did in front of you. Okay. All right. So let's move forward. So now the thing is that we saw, for example, creating a file or my underscore this, whereby we were trying to install. So whatever this is written is what is referred to as the Puppet language. That is, all these kind of scripts that you are seeing, they are written using Puppet language. The purpose of the Puppet language is to make it easy to specify the resources you need to manage on the machines. And so it uses its own configuration language, which was designed to be accessible by the sysadmins. And it does not require much programming experience. So if you see some of these scripts, for example this. So it says create something called class by the name this, and then you create a variable by the name $path and give this path over here, and then you are basically creating something called a package by the name of sample. Ensure that it's installed, right, and the source for it is pick it up from here, and if there are any install options, pass in this, that is this is the install directory, right? Or if you were to, let's say, create a file, it says you have to do something related to file, and then this is the location and this is the name of the file that you have to create, and then ensure that it is present, right? So this is what this language looks like. And if you were to go into more detail of this language, so here are some of the links that you can have a look at. So let's just go. So it's basically this is a language guide, right? It will walk you through what are the meaning of different items in the Puppet language, right? So resources, classes, right? Parameterized classes, run stages, define classes, right? Modules, right? How do you chain a different thing that is run one after the others? What is the concept of nodes, right? And all those things would be there. And the other important link is this. So it's not very so as I said, it's not a very complex programming language. It's very easy to understand, right? And so this could be a good beginning page to get a quick understanding of what the language is, right? So primarily it will involve resources, classes, and nodes. Then there's a concept of ordering. There's a concept of file, compilation, and catalogs, and they have given an example also. So let me take one piece at a time and try to give a brief idea about what it is, right? So first thing is what we refer to as the manifest. Now the .pp file that you just saw over here, right? So for example, this .pp file. So we will say that now they don't the Puppet people or the Puppet labs do not refer these files, that is these files written in this language, as scripts. So they prefer to call it as manifest. So it's not actually a script, it's just a manifest because it's a declarative language, not a a real programming language, right? Some of the conditions for this manifest files are that it should use UTF-8 encoding, right? And it may use Unix line feeds or Windows control line feeds. That is, just note that the line break format also affects the literal line breaks in the string. So that is something you have to keep in mind. And now these are the actual script which will be doing the execution part of this stuff of what all stuff that we need to do on the machine or the setup during deployment. Other thing that you need to understand about Puppet is the concept of resources. So what are the kind of resources identified in Puppet? These are file resources, packages, service, user. So for example, anything related to file that you want to do. So for example, we saw creating a file, or you want to pick up a file from somewhere. So use basically a thing called resource. So okay, so let's look at this way, that all these scripts, which are basically manifest files, .pp files, would be composed of resources, and these resources would be like file or a package or the services, for example, Windows service or Linux service that you want to start, or setting up a user, right? Those kind of things. And the syntax of using these resources, so you will have three major parts with this syntax. That is the type of the resource, the title, and the attribute. So if you were to look at, let's say, the file resource, so this was the type, this is the title, right? Now here you can give a different title, or you can give the complete path in case of a file resource. That's the way, if you go to the specs of this, that's the way it says. And then basically this is an attribute. So ensure is an attribute whose there are different values that can be set. So I have set it to present. And if you go to my install, so package is another kind of a resource, and this is the name of the resource that I have created, and these are the attributes. So the attribute ensure, source, and install options, right? So the manifest files will contain the resources. Resources are like file, packages, service, and users, etc. And you can find the complete list of the resources over here. So let's go to this link. So here is a complete list of resources. So you can basically see the syntax, the type, title, attributes, behavior, take a special attributes if any are there, right? And you can go on actually looking at it, right? So this is what a resource is, and then yeah. So let me move on, and I will share. So for example, here is one link which says the resource types. Okay, so here are the different kind of resource types. This is what I wanted to show you, and hence a little pause. So the resources are like it has little OGS, computer, cron, exec files. So if I go to, let's say, file, the resource, so it will say manages files including their content, ownership, and permission. The file type can manage normal files, directories, symlinks. The type should be specified in ensure attribute. Note that symlinks cannot be managed on Windows systems, and it basically gives up all the information related to the file. Similarly, we have other ones over here, right? So exec is, for example, for execute the external command. So the batch commands or the shell command that you want to execute, right, which you have been normally doing, you can capture it in exec and then run it in your scripts, right? So those kind of things are available out over here. Okay. All right. So since we don't have much time, so I will not be going into detail of all this, but it will give you a fair idea of what it looks like. And typically, a manifest file would look like this. So here you see. So for example, the following short manifest manages an NTP service, right? So it uses package, file, service resource, and a case statement based on certain facts, right? So for example, case, what is the operating system, and depending upon the value of the operating system variable, CentOS OS or Red Hat or Debian or Ubuntu, so service name would be NTPD or NTP, right? And then for package NTP, you have to ensure that it is installed for service NTP. So this is the package NTP, this is the service NTP. So for service NTP, you may basically you would serve basically the name of the service, ensure running, enable true, whatever things you want to do. And then similarly for file, you would like to do certain things. Okay, and yeah, so let's me. Okay, so this is basically a kind of a sample manifest file. So which basically is what it's trying to do is that depending upon the operating system, it is trying to get the service NTP up and running actually on that system. Okay. All right. So yeah, let's move on. The other thing is, as you had seen in the script that I showed you, there is this the term class that I used, right? So what does this mean? Now you have the manifest file, a clear concept of manifest file. You have the concept of resources, and now you want to basically bundle them together, and so that they can be reused somewhere else, right? Pretty much as we do in case of programming languages, where we have a blueprint of the object captured in the classes, and then we create the instances of that blueprint by the in the form of the objects. So for example, student class might be there, and then you will have instances of that blueprint student in the form of, let's say, the actual objects of the students. For example, let's say Rajesh or Sumit or whatever actually, right? So similarly, they have created a concept of class in Puppet. Now, so what it does is basically it gives you a mechanism to package all the resources together, and if required, refer, that is, call them elsewhere in other classes on need basis. So for example, I may have a class which is, let's say, install underscore Tomcat or install underscore sample MSI. So I can create these different classes, and depending upon the different machines where I need to do this stuff, I can call this class. So there may be common things like setting setting up the unpacking of the zip files, or the common kind of things that we want to do, so you can capture them into the classes and call them wherever needed, right? In actual when we start to actually use Puppet, so what we do is basically we have these small bits or things of the resources packaged together into classes. Let's say for installing Tomcat or installing MSI, installing MySQL, and then let's say yeah, you are setting up a new system and whatever you want to have it up. So for that particular system, which will be referred to as a node, so we will say for this node apply like this class, this class, this class, this class. That's it, and then it will set up the system for you to get it ready and up and about. So so let us basically see an example of the class. So here is an example of the class, for example, myInstall, and it will basically have various resources, right, and their attributes set to whatever you want to do, right. So this is what a typical class would look like. That it will have a collection of the resources and their attributes set to whatever you want to do. There's a concept of parameterized class. That is, when you invoke a class, you can pass parameters to it. So that concept is there, but since we are short of time, I'm not covering it right now. There's a concept of modules. The module is basically a self-contained bundle of code and data. So you can write your own modules, or you can download pre-built modules from Puppet Labs, and you can use them. So all this typical Tomcat, Java installer, there are a lot of these modules that are available which are ready to use, or you can customize them to your needs, right? So the key things are basically a module will have is the manifest, the files, the template, and the test. So I will just show you an example of that, but let me first share this link with you, which is called the Puppet Forge, which has basically a number of modules which are available, right, which will enable you to for whatever installation you are doing, you can just start to pick it up. In fact, you can contribute to your own also. So for example, these are the people who are frequent contributors to this, and they are listed over here, top 10 people, right? So maybe you can be one of the people whose name comes up over here, okay? And you can basically search for any of the module that you're looking for. So for example, installing MySQL, so I'll click this. So here are the various modules which are available over here. Now the question that you might be thinking is, but what is module actually, right? But before I take you that, I'll just quickly tell you that there's a tool called Geppetto that is built on top of Eclipse, which helps you to create modules. It's not that you really need to use this. You can create on your own and put them into the folder structure by the module name, and under that you create the folders, manifest, files, templates, and tests, and then you can get started on creating a module. The fundamentals of creating a modules are available over here. There we go. So it tells you all about how to create a module, right? So let me. I have this tool called Geppetto installed, and here is how you basically can get a module. So you go over here, right? So you can say new project, right? And you say Puppet project on existing Forge module, right? And then you can so if I click this, so it will take some time to come up because it is trying to connect at the back end with the Puppet Forge, right? So you will have to bear for a few seconds over here. And as you can see over here, I've already downloaded some of the modules over here. For example, for Java, for MySQL, for Tomcat, right? So I'll quickly walk through that. Yeah. So here you can like pick up any module. So for example, JBoss, right? So here are so JBoss, somebody has done some work, right? So let me pick up this, right? And I say okay, right? And I say let's say I go to JBoss 1, right? Okay, and I finish, right? So it will basically download this module for me, right? And then I can tweak it to my requirement, right? So this will have manifest, specs, templates, and tests, right? So if I go into manifest, so the initial starting manifest as a init.pp. And in this init.pp, he has basically, for example, class JBoss. The name of the class in the init.pp for the module should be same as the module name, but since I have changed it, so this need to be set right. Okay, and then so for example, it says file root/jboss. So I want this directory to be there. Owner has to be this, group has to be this, and these are the permissions to be set. And then the application server that I want to set up, the Hornet queue stuff that I want to do, all that. Now here if you see, it is referring to JBoss AS, that is it referring to another class, right, under the JBoss module as the classes AS. So let's go over here. So here we have the AS class over here. Now this is a parameterized class if you see. So it's basically asking for all these parameters to be passed to it, right? And then whatever you want. So for example, JBoss install, it is referring to another class. So JBoss install. So JBoss install is over here. So what does it do? So it basically again takes the version user group based directory, right, and then zip file, whatever it is, right, and then package zip has to be installed, and all those stuff is captured over here. And similarly, you can have say for installing Java, right, or installing Tomcat, right, and so on. So Puppet Forge has a lot of them. You can tweak these scripts to your requirement, or of course you can write scripts from scratch on your own. And yeah, I think I'm just around time. Quickly, one is that the standalone mode of Puppet, another is the agent master. So the way I run the scripts right now, okay, was the standalone mode. That is, I was trying to run on the same system on which I was here. But in real life, you would have a central server on which these scripts are deployed, and then the new instances that you're going to set up, right? You can just give their names, and they are referred to as, you will register those with the master server. So there will be two pieces to it. So let me just quickly demonstrate that to you. So okay. So what's going to happen is that you would have a master. Okay. So here we go. So we say master, Puppet master installed at one location, right? And then the new the machines where you want a different kind of setups to be above. That's a different a Tomcat setup or a JBoss server or multiple setups of Tomcat, whatever. So the Puppet master would be installed over here, and over here you would have the Puppet agent installed, right? So what this agent does is it's basically runs a daemon, and which keeps on after every 30 minutes keep on polling this master, and at the master corresponding to this, so we'll basically refer to this as a node, right? And the master for this node I would have specified apply this class, this class, this class, this class from the corresponding modules, right? So if I make any change, so let's say I want to upgrade JBoss, so I would basically create a new class of that, right, or modify the class for that, right, and these nodes would automatically know that that has been modified, and when the agent poll for it, it would come to know that there is some change for the classes that have applied to me, and it will basically update everything over here, right, on the corresponding node, right. And if it is a fresh instance, right, and whatever classes have been applied, so it will basically pick up those classes and apply to the new agent. So once the node has been set up and the agent is running, after every 30 minutes keep on polling to find if there is something new for it, right? That's how this whole master agent stuff works. But once you set up a new instance and set the agent running up over here, it will first basically send a message to the master to certify it, because it has to ensure that it is an authentic agent or the authentic node that has come. And then the master, somebody either has to manually sign it, or if you are working inside a firewall and you know that there is no security issue, so then you can set the master at the auto certifying mode. Okay. All right. So that's briefly what standalone mode and the agent master is. and I'll skip the slide. Of course, if you want to, really go for building your credentials in Puppet, so here's a Puppet certification offered by Puppet Labs. So there are the details of this, right? So you can like go for it. Okay, so I think to have a I'll skip this quiz part because we don't have much time. And so you can like try out various installations that you may be doing on a regular basis. Write simple in shell and bash script, and try doing it through Puppet. Here are my contact details, and maybe in future I'll share something more about Chef or a detailed course on deployment automation, and you can reach out to me for any deployment automation discussion or automation work that you might have, or Puppet training. All right, so that's all. I'll be happy to if Moini permits some time, I'll be happy to take some questions.
The presentation, Mr. Ganesh. We have a few questions coming up.
Okay.
I've started assigning you the questions. I hope you can see them.
Okay, just 1 second. Okay, so first question is Puppet platform dependent? See, Puppet Master, can be installed only on Linux setups, so it doesn't, the Windows variant doesn't come. However, the nodes could be either or Windows, because agent is, it can be installed on various platforms, Linux, Windows, and so on, right? Okay, can we use this language on non-Windows platform? Yes, you can use it on non-Windows platforms as well, right? Is this language only for infrastructure related deployment? No, you can, like if you are in a test team and you have to regularly do the installation for your testing, so you can write your own Puppet scripts and do the installation, automate your installation process and whatever configuration that you have to do. Especially if you are basically working on a kind of server side technologies, right? It will be great. Even for desktop side products, you can write these scripts, and it will it will ease your work so much, right, in terms of doing it manually. Can we use Puppet for automating web apps? Yeah, the deployment of the web apps can be automated through Puppet scripts. Okay, I think, yeah, these are the only questions that are there. Moini, do you see any other questions, or these are all?
I have 2 more questions.
Okay, okay. If we have time, maybe we can take them up.
Yeah, sure. I've already assigned you.
Okay, great. So, are there disadvantages using Puppet? Well, I don't see any disadvantages of using Puppet. To the contrary, I see a lot of advantages of using Puppet. It's easy to understand, and within a couple of hours you can be up and about in using in getting used to writing these scripts and doing your installation. Okay. Okay. Okay, so there's another one. What is the equivalent of chef recipes in Puppet? Okay, so okay, so I have to give a disclaimer that I have not used chef much, but to whatever extent I have understood chef, the recipes are equivalent of what we have. So there's a concept of recipes and cookbook. So right now I'm a little confused in that. But either one of them is equivalent of what we basically described as modules in Puppet. Yeah. So yeah. So Anand, maybe I can take that question offline later on, because I may have to go back and look at the distinction between recipes and cookbooks in detail. Okay, yeah. All right, I think anything. Yeah, that's it, Moini. Okay. Can these puppets, can these script be scheduled to run at a particular time? Yeah, yeah. There's a concept of scheduling, right? So you can do that, right? Uh, can we use Puppet Labs in application deployment? Yeah, of course. You can do that, for deployment purposes. That's what this is there for. Um, if Puppet is good enough, then why use Chef? Okay. So, you know, um, both Puppet and Chef are competing with each other, right? And if one introduces one feature, the other is also, following it, following to, provide that feature. So, they are, in my opinion, they are both, moving neck to neck. Both have their set of, people following them, right, and their own comfortable in using them, right? One of the distinction is that Chef provides you a cloud infrastructure also to run your Chef scripts. Puppet does not do that, right? So now how useful it is for your environment depends upon your requirements actually, right? So it's basically, both are giving have their pluses and minuses. So it's neck to neck. I compared a couple of things for Chef and Puppet, and I found them neck to neck. All right, so that will be all.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation, Mr. Ganesh. It was a great one. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of this session would be available on techgeek.com by tomorrow. Thank you all. Have a great evening.